Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a very exciting meeting because we have some wonderful VIPs involved. Before we get started, I just want to go over some of the logistical things. The first thing is that the way we're going to handle everybody is that when you come in, you're going to get muted. Go ahead and mute everybody right now, Ed. Everybody can unmute themselves at any time. We prefer you not do that except when you're called upon, except for our presenters who can keep themselves unmuted. We also have a Spanish translation through a back line. And I'd like to call on Lorna, who is our interpreter, to explain to people how you can get onto the back line with interpretation. Go ahead, Lorna.
Para las personas que hablan español, llamen al 551-241-6310. De nuevo, 551-241-6310 para escuchar la interpretación al español. No se necesita código. Gracias. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorna. So welcome everybody to SDP Connect. For those of you who've never been part of these calls before, SDP Connect is a weekly phone call every Wednesday from 4:30 to 6 p.m. where we discuss each week a different topic and have different guest presenters to help you navigate the self-determination program. The target audience for these calls are the participants of the self-determination program and their family members. However, we embrace and welcome all others to join us, such as independent facilitators, FMSs, and regional center staff and service providers, of which I know we have a whole bunch of you on the call today. And we also welcome all of you to join in the conversation. The way it's going to work today is that if you would like to ask a question, make a comment, tell a story, I'm asking you to keep it brief. We only have an hour and a half. We must get off at 6 p.m. And the reason why we must get off at 6 p.m. is because there's something I want to watch on television. I'm going to be nonpartisan here, but it happens to be something related to a previous president of the United States that I would like to see speaking. And so we must get off at 6, and maybe there are other people who would like to see that as well. So the way you will be able to ask a question, make a comment, is by raising your hand. And I don't mean like raising your hand like this, because there's so many people on this call that I cannot see all your faces. The way you raise your hand is by going to participants, and you will see that there is a box for raise hand. Click on raise hand, and you will see a little blue hand come up against your face, and it creates an order for me so that I'll be able to call on you in order, and then you should definitely unmute yourself. Please, I'm going to try to keep everybody to a couple of minutes in your comments. I am going to ask you to move along the conversation if it goes on for too long. And I know for sure that our guests today are more than happy to continue to have that conversation with you if it becomes really complex, and will help you deal with your any issues you may be having. So once again, if I could ask Ed to mute everybody, please. Okay, so once again, everybody's muted upon entry, and then you can unmute yourself when it's something that you would like to say. And please try to keep yourself muted while you're not asking a question. All right, so thank you so much to the Department of Developmental Services for joining us today. You have been our partner since we even tried to get this bill passed back in 2012. And I'm really, really happy. There's a couple of new faces at DDS. Oh, actually, you're all new faces at DDS who are going to be helping us today. But a couple of new faces that many of you may not know. And I'm not going to ask them to actually introduce and talk just a second about their lives and what brought them here. So first, I'd like to introduce Maricris, who is, I call her the new Jim Knight, but she's the Director of Federal Programs for the Department of Developmental Services. And Maricris, please go ahead and mute yourself and tell us a little bit about what brought you to DDS.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Judy, and hi, everyone. Yes, people used to call me Jim Jr., and now they call me the new Jim. So I'm so grateful to be invited in your in this forum. I came from the Department of Finance actually before I moved to the Department of Developmental Services. But my most important job really is I'm a mom to a 6-year-old boy with autism spectrum disorder, and he's my real life hero. He really teaches me every day what matters in life, and so I am grateful to be part of this conversation again, and happy to hear everyone's thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maricris. Tim Travis is also brand new to DDS in the last, during COVID. I know you came in during COVID.
Yeah,
so
3 months.
3 months. So Tim, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure and benefit to work with families and people with developmental disabilities for over 30 years now. Started out in the vendor community and then spent the last 24 years with one of the regional centers in LA County, service coordinator, resource developer, worked with individuals moving out of the developmental centers. And my final position was working not only with people in self-determination, but also the federal revenues program, as well as also the clinical services. So really excited to be with the DDS team. I have a great group working towards the self-determination regulations programs, as well as the home and community-based services.
Wonderful. Thank you. Somebody just asked if there's Spanish translation. So it is in chat, the chat, how you get in the phone number. But Lorna, may I ask you, since some people are just arriving, if you could just say it again in Spanish, please? There you go.
Para las personas que hablan español y quieren escuchar la interpretación, llamen al 551-241-6310. De nuevo, 551-241-6310. No se necesita código de acceso. Gracias.
Thank you, Lorna. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Catherine Blakemore, who really needs no introduction. But for those of you who don't know, Catherine is now a consultant at DDS, helping with a number of projects, including the self-determination program implementation. And for those of you who may not know, Catherine sat at a table with us many, many years ago and helped us scratch out what self-determination law might look like on the back of a napkin. And so, Catherine, we're really thrilled, and I feel like this is such a pleasure to have you. So go ahead, Catherine.
I'm happy to be here. I know so many of you and have worked with you, so it's just a delight to be able to hear what you have to say. I mean, we're at a time in self-determination where we've been working in this phase-in period, and the statute currently says that it's now going to be for everyone starting next June. And so it's really the best time to think about what's working and what could be improved or enhanced. And that's really why we're here, to hear about the people who have been working through this process, your experiences, and get your thoughts about that. So we, just to try and keep things organized, have a series of questions we'd love to ask all of you and hear your responses. And I really appreciate Judy kind of being our timekeeper and helping sort of call on people, because I find it quite challenging. That might be my technological skills or lack thereof, to pay attention to whoever's speaking and to look at the list of participants all at the same time. So I think with that, are there other people that Maricris or Tim, we need to introduce from DDS?
I would love to introduce Jennifer Parsons, who's hiding behind her name, but Jennifer is such an important person to this project. Jennifer, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Jennifer Parsons. I've been working with self-determination program at DDS for about 4 years now, I think. Before that, I was a service provider in California and Hawaii, in residential services, day program services. And what I love best about my job is that something changes every day, and I get to learn something and meet new people and hear different situations all the time. So really looking forward to our conversation tonight and hearing your stories. So thank you. And I'm going to hide because I am doing other things at home.
Okay, that's not a problem. And we also have Susan Crow from DDS as well. I don't know if Susan wants to introduce herself. She does not have to. Susan, do ya? No? No. Okay. Hi, Susan, go ahead.
Hey Judy, I was just gonna say I am not in a place where I can have video on, yeah, I've been working on self-determination for a couple years now. I'm really excited to be listening in today and really appreciate all the times I've learned from you guys in the past. So enjoy continuing to learn and moving forward. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Susan. So that's a really good cohort. I had also invited some Rick Wood and Maria Marquez. I don't know. I know that Rick is in Yellowstone, so he was going to try to get to a place with signal enough to get on, but I don't think that it was that easy for him, so I'm not sure he'll be able to join us. But for those of you who may not know, Rick Wood and Maria Marquez are the chairs of the statewide Self-Determination Advisory Committee, which consists of the chairs of the 21 local advisory committees at each regional center. And they formally issued a report last week talking about the major barriers to implementation of the self-determination program for participants. If I could ask Ed to put a link to that report in the chat, and that way folks can take a look at it when they have a chance. So I want to get started. So Catherine, were you or someone else going to guide, ask prompting questions?
I would ask some questions.
Great.
And then you can let us know when maybe it's just time to go to the next question so that we can get through.
How many total questions so I can figure out my timing?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. Okay. I should also mention that on the Spanish line that Lorna is interpreting, we will take a moment for each of the questions to ask if there's anybody from the Spanish line who would like to make a comment. Okay.
So the other thing I want to say is we're trying to get input generally about how the program's going, and I can see in the chat there's lots of individual questions. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to answer individual questions that people have, but I think we can keep track of the chat, and then the DDS people can think about what the best way is to respond to some individual questions that families have, because I at least may not be the best person to be answering those.
Yeah, and it may be best, this is Tim Travis, it may be best to have those questions sent to the SDP inbox or the sdp@dds.ca.gov so that we can address those.
Great. And I'm capturing all of the questions.
Excellent.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
And Jennifer just provided the link, but it's also great if Judy can just capture the questions and send them on too. So but it would probably be helpful to know who they're from so that people can respond.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I want to start because I'm an optimistic person, and all of you are here participating in self-determination, about what has gone well with your experience, either going all the way through the process or where you are today in the process, hoping that you're going to get to the goal line, as they say. So thoughts about that?
So what I ask you to do now, if you would like to make a comment, is to put your hand up, meaning you go down to participants, you just like it says Arthur Oster, but we know it's David Oster, has done very successfully. And I say, all right, we have a lot of people. Okay, so David, go ahead and mute yourself and you begin.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, David, go ahead.
What I like about this meeting is when we were at the Harbor Regional Center meeting, there was an interpreter, but they were speaking over us. And when we had to go to the chat line and you hit interpret, and it had to be a Spanish or American flag, and people were getting confused.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's how come we actually don't use the interpreter system within Zoom, because we find it to not be accessible to people. In fact, and so that's why we use an outside line.
I mean, it's better to use an outside line.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. You just reaffirmed.
Just got out of the pool, so it's
Thanks,
been
David. Thank you, David. Ann, here, you're next.
Thanks, Judy. I appreciate it. I just wanted to let you know that I will say a little bit about what I love about SD, but this is primarily, I just want to share some barriers that I'm experiencing. Is that appropriate?
Let's start with the positive.
Okay.
And then we'll move on to the barriers. Is that okay, Catherine?
Yeah, the next question is, what are the barriers or challenges?
So let's try to start with how amazing self-determination is.
All right, First of all, I'm Ann. I'm the mother of an adult son. He's severely affected by autism and IDD, and I believe passionately in self-determination. And we have had some very positive experiences. And the first one that I thought was great was that we were able to purchase a support animal for our son and training. He had lost his support animal years before, and we were not able to get one in any way. And frankly, he grieved so physically that he lost many things in his life. So that was a huge positive. And I just want to say I take my role as one of the people very fortunately chosen in this rollout to be able to do this correctly so that we can make things a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
But I will speak later about barriers. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Ann. Tammy Polly, tell us a good story, please.
Oh, you want a really good one?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a really, really good one. I have a family that got into self-determination, and in her person-centered plan, she said she wanted to do a house edition. Well, and I put it in because I just put it in, and it turns out with the money that she's saving, because she doesn't have to do all the therapies, she's doing an addition. She's making a room for the nanny. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's she's saving the money for it and she's doing the plans for it. So I thought that was really fun. But anyway, I've got 12 families now in full self-determination, and every single one of them is really happy with the FMS system and everything. And my first one took a year and a half to get through, which was painful. And I'm so sorry. All hell's great. Somebody's trying to sell me solar. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I love live TV. Anyway, so this is sorry. So anyway, we have really good things, and the first one took a year and a half to get through, and I'm getting people through in about 2 months, a month or 2 months now with certain regional centers. With other ones,
Catherine, are you an independent facilitator then, or tell me what your role is, how you're helping people?
I'm writing their person-centered plan, I'm doing their budget, and I'm doing their spending plan. And then most of my families don't really want me to go through. They don't want me as a line item, but I write in a couple of hours so that I can help them with next year's IPP. But most of my families don't want to have an independent facilitator on the other side.
Okay, thank
Wonderful. You. Thanks, Tammy. Constance Lipinski or Harvey? It's Harvey and Connie. You're muted, Harv. You're still muted, Harvey. Connie's taking care of it. Go ahead. No, still muted, Harvey. All right, we're going to go to the next one while you figure it out. Okay, Connie? Carolyn Talalian.
Hi, everyone. I'm the mother of a 31-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. And the great thing about what's happening with us, we just started 2 weeks ago, is that now she's been living in her own home that they rent. It's not a group home that they rent. with her two best friends, is now we've been able through self-determination to hire quality people to be her staff. Instead of the agency getting all the money, we are 100% of that money now per hour is going to staff. So they're getting a living wage up to our manager who gets $30 an hour. So it's wonderful because each of the people we were able to choose has a gift or talent that they are bringing to our daughters' lives, whether it be cooking or art, gardening, computers. So that is just totally amazing for us. And we went through a difficult time trying to get one financial management service on, but we found another. We pivoted after a couple weeks. And we have Premier, we were starting with Premier. Our person happened to take a leave for 2 weeks without contacting us. So we went to GTI and are really happy. They've been incredibly responsive. So I think having choices, just not only for our young adults or kids, we got choices to help find a different management service. So it was a good thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
We're unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's Harvey.
Here's what I'm going to say after a lot of years on this. It's a paradigm change. I think what I'm seeing in a very, very, very positive way, Sean has a lot of support, a lot of staff, and it's an attitude change. It's focus, and it's been going on now really pretty well for the last month. It's all about one person-centered. It's about Sean, and I see it happening with the staff on a really magnitude level, not like before. Even though it was in an agency type of thing, now it's about one person, Sean's life. And that's what self-determination is, someone leading a good life.
And we keep saying, who's in charge, Sean?
And he says, me.
Oh, that's so
and
awesome.
Dave.
I love it.
And he's 52 years old.
And the staff is seeing a difference in Sean's attitude.
Right.
So let me tell you, he's 52 years old. He has severe autism. For the people that don't know who we are, we've been in this struggle a long time. And Harvey kept saying, who's in charge? Who's in charge? And if we can get
Sean says me. I love it.
That's so great. Thanks,
we have
guys.
barriers, but that's the positive, and that's
That's
profound.
that's huge.
That's great. Thank you. Fernando?
Hi, Fernando Gomez. We're in the Integrated Community Collaborative Hub today. And, you know, and Catherine, I'm glad you started off with this question because, you know, we need to bring attention to the things that are going well. Because I know that I'm assuming next several questions, we're going to talk about some of the things that are probably not going too well. But some of the things that are going extremely well is the fact that on a Thursday, at this time of the day, we can have over 100 people having this conversation week after week. That's going extremely well. And it talks to a very important dynamic that a program of this magnitude cannot be successful unless you have meaningful dialogue like this one. But the ability to go out into the communities and have these conversations at the level that we're having today is really encouraging and impressive. So that's gone very well. Kudos to the department for that empowerment, for really making a priority to get deep into the community and not just hear the, you know, close answers that want to, I'm not going to try to say that have actually drank the Kool-Aid, but kind of just tell you what you want to hear, but go deep into that community and tell you the things that you need to hear in order for us to be successful. So that I think is going very well. So thanks for the great question and the opportunity to expand on a dynamic that I'm hoping we can continue to push forward.
Thanks so much, Fernando. Before we move on, can I ask Ed to mute everyone one more time, just because there's some weird. All right, great. There was some wind and it was clearly not from Fernando since he is indoors. So I don't know where that was coming from. Okay, great. Okay, next is Michelle Smith. Hi, Michelle. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm Michelle Smith, and I have 3 children that are in self-determination, and I have morphed into an independent facilitator. One of my daughters lives with Carolyn, and it is an amazing process to be able to do this innovative and creative work around what our kids want. And with my second son, we had started self-determination just before COVID hit, and he continued on with his services that we had kind of worked around with his interests, some of which I had thrown in there because it's like, what does he want to do? And so now he's had this variety of activities that he's been working on, and he now gets to choose, but he's had the experience of something different. And he's done, he started a YouTube with his Legos. He's selling on eBay, which he wasn't doing before. He's doing some amazing things. And my daughter, still in high school, has announced that she wants to be president of her high school, which if we ever go back to school will be an interesting proposition, but there would be somebody to support her on the outside to develop some leadership skills. So my kids are going all sorts of different ways. But one of the most important things that has come out of this for our family, one of the important things, I will never go back traditional services unless somebody makes me. And the other thing is I now have a position in my children's life that will continue to work and maintain that meaningful person-centered life for them that's not about a plan, but it's about their life. And that's the role of the independent facilitator. And that role is such an intimate role, and it's actually a sacred role, I think, that I don't think you can write that into the statute, but it can become such an important role in people's lives. And for that I am grateful, because it gets my other kids off the hook. So thanks so much.
That's so beautifully said. I love that, Michelle. Thank you. Susie Wexler. How do you say your last name? Susie, so I can mispronouncing it.
Weschler, just like the
Weschler.
test. Yes.
Yeah, because it's the SCH. Thank you.
That's right. So I will take up just a tiny slice of time because we are not in self-determination yet. We were not chosen for the pilot. My son is 16. But what I want to say very quickly is that what has already worked for us is the community of people who are circling self-determination, like Disability Voices United, like our wonderful DDS panelists today, like all of the dozens of panelists that you've had, Judy, like Parents Helping Parents that we've accessed, that have been there to support those of us in self-determination and those of us that are trying to learn about self-determination, which is frankly like trying to drink out of a water hose. I'm sorry, a fire hose. You know, it's just the information is coming at us, but everybody is there to support us. And so whatever the infrastructure is to support them, I'm very thankful for.
Thanks,
so that's
Susie.
what I'll say.
And June 7th, 2021, you're in. So the last person, and then we're going to move on to the next set of questions. Oh, it's gone. Okay, so Mom had her hand up. It's now down.
No,
I don't
I'm
know
sorry.
who Mom
I was lowering it preemptively.
Oh, okay. So the person who is just Mom, I'm also a mom, so I'm not sure who Mom is. Could you go ahead and unmute yourself and make your comment? There's Mom.
Hi, this is Miriam. Somebody asked this question in the chat. So I don't know if you're reading the chat. My question is, the extra COVID hours we are getting right now, the PA hours, why can they not be added into the budget?
Okay, so I'm going to hold on to that important question because this is just about talking about successes.
Oh.
So, and then we'll have that opportunity to ask that question.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so go ahead, Catherine, we're moving on.
Oh, now we're like, thank you, by the way. I mean, I think if we are talking about helping people who aren't in self-determination understand the value of it, the little snippets, every one of them, I think was incredibly helpful. So I'm just grateful for those. But we also know when you're pioneers in something that I think, as someone said, like you're on a journey so that it will be easier for the people that come next. And so part of what we want to figure out is what hasn't worked. And I'm particularly interested if you have ideas about what would need to change. Judy, you look pained.
I just forgot to ask for the Spanish speaking line.
Let's go back and do that.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Catherine. You can really read my face, can't you? Lorna, do you mind asking if there's anyone? So while Lorna's doing that, I'm just going to advertise something that has nothing to do with this call for tomorrow. So tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. Is the launch of Disability Vote California. It's a coalition of organizations, including my organization, Easter Seals, Disability Rights California, the State Council, the Los Angeles Coalition of Service Providers, the ARC of California, Autism Society of LA, a lot of groups around the state who are coming together to educate people about voting and create programs and materials so that you are educated about voting. So it's from 2 to 4 p.m. And I think Ed is putting some stuff in the chat for you to know about it. So go ahead, Lorna, no questions. Okay, so remind us of your, so I know what you asked. It's about barriers or any things that might be different or change to help things move forward. So Tammy, Polly,
any solutions that you have for the barrier.
Yeah, so we need suggestions, right? So if you all read this barriers document that was put out by the State Council, the Statewide Advisory Committee, you will see that we don't just say this isn't working, but we say this is how we can do better. And it's not just the responsibility of one individual or one agency to make it work better, but it's the responsibility of all of us. So go ahead, Tammy, Polly.
We just started a new program through a grant, Education Spectrum. We're working with San Gabriel because one of the barriers is people are having troubles finding an independent facilitator. So we have been tasked through this grant to kind of do a match.com for the people that are not are in self-determination, but they haven't really started the process. So we're matching people up with independent facilitators who have actually gotten people through the program. And so they're experienced and they have to do the whole thing for $2,500. That's the basis of which we make the recommendations and word of mouth. So we're matching people up, and so far we've gotten 5 people in 2 weeks. We've gotten 5 people paired up with independent facilitators and actually starting their plans.
And is this a project that's funded by one of the local advisory committees, or that's great? Perfect.
San Gabriel. That's what they chose to use their money on.
About that. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Carla Lehman.
Hi, I just have a question about the COVID hours, and I asked it before in last week, but I still have the same question because I have a lot of clients that are trying to move to self-determination, and the regional centers are saying that the COVID hours cannot be added into the budget. And also one of my clients tried to appeal, and they said that they don't know if they can appeal the hours since they are emergency hours and it's an emergency service. So I'm really confused on how to move with it. And my suggestion on how to fix it is to add the hours into the budget. Since everybody else is getting it in the traditional system, why not the person that is moving to self-determination cannot get the hours? And even though they're saying like, well, these are like month-to-month type of things, so we can adjust the budget every month if it's necessarily, even though everybody is gonna keep doing virtual schooling and COVID is gonna be going on for a long time. So yeah, so that's my question.
So thanks for that, Carla. And I guess one of the things I'm hearing within that is, some clarity from DDS so that the rules appear, the rules are statewide rules so that everybody understands what can be done and what can't be done. Like you need an answer from someone and then have that rule apply consistently across all the regional centers. Did I get that right?
Yes, different regional centers are doing different things, but a lot of them are not including the hours, or if they're not included into the budget at all, or some of them are still giving them outside the budget, but some of them are not giving them at all. It's like if you want to move to self-determination, you cannot have any extra support.
Okay, I got it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, this has come up pretty repeatedly for the last month on our calls. And this has got to get resolved because it's a huge barrier because people aren't willing to move in unless they have that added to their budget, especially for families, a lot of Latino families who have really tiny budgets. Yes. It's all the difference in the world. They may be going from 0 POS to just a little bit of POS here. So
yes, the other concern is that a lot of the parents lost their jobs because of COVID, or maybe now they're working part-time. So then the regional centers are not giving them the childcare hours that they used to get before, but they still need it because they're looking for a job and they're still assisting their children with all the virtual classes and therapies. And it's a lot of work. And so there can be some exceptions because of that time of COVID without having to go to fair hearing every time.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, we're really, so DDS has tried since the very beginning in 2013 when the law was passed to be there and so that we don't have to be going to fair hearing. But what we're facing right now is a lot of people are going to fair hearing because DDS is not making enough decisions or enough directives. So one of the reasons why I'm so glad you're on is to hear all the concerns. Okay, Christina Canarella.
Hi, thank you, Judy, for just hosting this again. And thank you, Catherine, for reaching out and really wanting to hear from us. I will start out by a positive thing, and I'll piggyback on what Susie said. The resources out there that Disability Voices has provided and other organizations for us. My son is still on the waiting list as well. We're not in the program yet, but it has been such a blessing to have found a community and everything about it. I'm so excited and sharing all the information with everybody I know because of a lot of the barriers. And one of the barriers obviously is being not able to be in the program. I know June is not too far off, but in the midst of the pandemic and I'm grateful to DDS for the additional participant directed services that directive that was put out there. However, it takes care of the personal assistance, having us have flexibility around that. But in terms of programming, especially with virtual programming and everything that we need to, readjust, there is no flexibility with that. So one suggestion I have is I know at our regional center, and I'm maybe at others as well, some consumers who were allowed to be in the program have since decided to not continue. So there are slots opened in those to meet that 2,500 statewide number. If you were to allow people or open it up and maybe go back to the very beginning of people who, applied maybe 2 years ago to be on the waiting list and see if they would be interested, because there are, as even just from this call, a lot of us that would jump on and probably finish even quicker than some people who've been, struggling with it because of the knowledge we've gained from all of this. So if you could at least consider that, or maybe make it more clear in terms of, I know the participant directed services allows day services, but regional centers are not familiar. They're really thinking it's just more personal assistance and independent living skills, SLS. So anything you can do to move the process along would be hugely appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Christina. You should know that we at Disability Voices United have been advocating for the expansion of the self-determination program because of COVID. We have made that plea and actually got it in the Senate budget bill and then again in the assembly budget bill, but the governor's who negotiates has a major role in negotiation, pulled it out. So DDS is the governor, and so we do implore you. We continue to say that there is great need, and you're hearing it today. And I should also mention that one of the big barriers that came out of the report that the statewide advisory committee found was the fact that there aren't enough people in the program. And that in itself is a barrier, because there are FMSs who've decided not to take new clients because there's just too few out there, and they're going to wait till it goes statewide. There are service providers who are saying, well, it's just not enough people, so we're going to wait. So the fact that there's so few, and that because it was a random selection, there's a lot of people who got in who really weren't sure what they were getting into, and therefore they've dropped out or are moving very slowly. So anyway, all right. We know you guys have heard my arguments. Well, maybe Tim and Maricris haven't, but Catherine certainly has. Sonia Ramos.
Hi, I'm a mother of a 7-year-old autistic child who is or was selected for self-determination. We've done our PCP and we've found some great things for her that she would like, but we are at the budget. We don't have a big budget, but it's even smaller because one-time items such as a psychological evaluation requested by the regional center cannot be added, as well as childcare that was used last year cannot be added. ESY hours, summer, spring break and winter break cannot be added. So therefore, I don't have a big budget to live the good life that Harvey says that my daughter can live. And so I need help moving forward.
Hey, man, what's up?
Hey, there's a cute kid.
This is Leah. This is the 7-year-old.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Leah.
So were you asking that, so you previously got those hours, the one-time hours added as like respite hours? Is that what happened?
The one-time hours that I got for childcare was last year for the summer month. Instead of ESY, she got childcare.
I see. Okay. That's just helpful to know sort of what category and sort of what it is. So thank you for explaining.
Okay, thank you.
Well, sir, in my opinion, and I'm not DDS, you should absolutely, I'm not really sure why you weren't getting any extra support this summer, since nobody's in school this summer. In fact, you should have gotten an increase in your hours because of COVID. So so that's really a concern, that you have got that we are now, everybody's at home, and that you're actually have fewer hours than you had prior to COVID. So that in itself is a concern regardless of self-determination.
And I'm struggling. My daughter has like 19 plus hours of services, and I have to assist and I have to work, and I'm splitting myself in all directions, and I need support. I need support to move forward. You talk about moving forward, support us, please.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Sonia, what regional center are you, just to know?
Westside Regional Center.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Lorie of Lorie's iPhone. Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. I have a question. My son's Jeremy Lee. We got into self-determination. Thank you so much. It's been such a positive mission or journey so far, but I have one question. I'm currently under a waiver to get the CHHA hours through Medi-Cal. Now, when I go to the FMS, I'm about ready to finalize the FMS with the agency. My understanding is you can't have two waivers. You can't have a self-determination waiver and then also have this other waiver that's been provided that facilitates 79 hours of Medi-Cal funded CHHA hours for my son. Now, the question is, what happens to those hours? Do they get put into the self-determination waiver? Or do we have 2 waivers to keep?
So Lorie, I think somebody's going to have to speak to you separately because it's not entirely clear. Is it a separate waiver? Is it part of the state plan? And there's just different rules that are going to apply depending on kind of your circumstances. So Judy's doing a really good job of keeping track of the questions. Maybe make sure she has your emails. So
we're in contact. Thank you. Yeah, we're in contact, but I know that's going to come up with the FMS, and there's something there's definitely a connection there. So I just want to raise a red flag because we're about to finalize about to go to our budget meeting. And I'm totally excited about being in self-determination. My son is 26. After he graduated from high school here in San Fernando Valley at Chatsworth High School, we had nowhere to go. He is a quadriplegic, but cognitively there, and he's an artist. So we're going to create a new art business for him. We're going to carry along the program that I created for him in the last 4 years because nobody would touch him in a day program. So I'm rolling this out now with an amazing transition facilitator. But the question is this waiver now that's going to hang around to figure out which spot we go into and how we take those extra Medi-Cal hours and put them into self-determination.
Okay, we got the question.
I've heard this from a couple of different people. So
Thank you,
I just
Judy.
don't understand how somebody could be not be able to get it in self-determination. They should continue to be able to get that. So,
well, yes, exactly. Well, I'm sure we'll hear the answer here soon. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ann here.
Yes, hello. So thanks, Judy. So in terms of barriers, they are all at the regional center level for us. And what we did, actually, it took about 9 months for our spending plan to be approved. And it was only approved because we agreed to remove things that my team had originally put in, but that were denied by the chain of command as we went up the regional center. And there were several of them. The one that I remember was that my son is overweight, he's pre-diabetic, he had a meltdown in a Y and is unable to have anywhere to go exercise. And I found a bike where 2 people could sit together, both have the capacity to steer and both have the capacity to pedal. He does like to bike and he is able because his fine and gross motor skills are delayed. And they said, well, that's more of a want than a need. So we will not approve this until that is removed. And so, okay, fine. So I really wanted to get going on this because I wanted that service dog. So I just let that go. But then as we continued forward, my son had a change in circumstances and I requested several items because per my understanding of these service definitions, they fit in quite well. And it was approved by my IPP team. I did contact my FMS. Yes, we have purchased those items for other SD participants. However, as it went up, the first level is the Director of Consumer Services and the Associate Director of Consumer Services both said no to everything that we requested. And at first they stated that none of the things we requested were able to be purchased via SD funds. We pushed back a little bit on that because it really is in the interpretation. But then they said, well, we believe all of those things should be purchased with generic resources. And I tried to point out, my kids, he has SSI and so it would take a long time to purchase these things. They're not overly expensive, but when you consider the little bit they get per month, and they said, well, how did you use your stimulus check? And I thought, okay, well, I'm embarrassed because I actually put that in his ABLE account. Because we do provide thousands of hours of natural supports because my son is so severely affected. And when I am no longer walking the planet, I wanted to leave some kind of base for him to work with. So I conceded to one of the items purchasing with the stimulus check, but then they went on to say that the ABLE funds, I had an ABLE account, and I kid you not, when this was in the conversation, only people of means can have an ABLE account in the state of California. You've got one. Have you exhausted all those resources to purchase these items? One of the items I actually had a doctor's note for But again, their interpretation of it was absolutely no appliances of any kind can be purchased with SD funds. So no, you may not have that. So I could go on, but let me give you my suggestions for how we may be able to overcome these things. My team has now told me, go to fair hearing on this, okay? My objection to that is that I'm trying to hold on to my full-time job while caring for my son and having difficulty finding caregivers, and certainly can't get going without purchasing some of these things. But my feeling is, could we possibly put more of a burden or some kind of consequence to the regional centers when they do things like go against the regulation about ABLE accounts? They clearly cannot do that with SD funds. We all know this, but there's no consequence to them of any kind for doing this. There's no consequence to them for not coming to my IPP meeting, simply saying no, right? There's nothing that's going to happen. They won't return my phone calls. There are no consequences. So what if, instead of making the consumer go to fair hearing, make sure that the IPP team members are really well trained and understand the tenets of self-determination. Then if they agree that a purchase is reasonable and just and in the sending plan and within the budget and all those things, they are allowed to, the FMS is allowed to purchase it. Then if there's conflict within the IPP team, then perhaps what we need is not to go to the regional center for approval, but something beyond the regional center, something at DDS where they can help the IPP team work through. So once everything is okay, then we make the purchase. And then at that point, if the regional center doesn't like it, they go to fair hearing. And should they win, then the money is taken out of the spending plan. In other words, my biggest frustration is there are literally no consequences for the regional centers to fund our plans. There are no consequences for them to simply say no. And they don't need to be in my IPP team or even a member of it. And they determine the chain of command that can go up and approve all these things. So until there are, pardon me?
I thank you, Ann. Those are all really important. I don't know if DDS wants to say anything to those in response. That was some pretty heavy stuff there. I mean, for a regional center to be making a claim that the ABLE account needs to be spent down before your self-determination budget is spent seems seriously illegal to me. But what do you all think of DDS?
Hi, it's Maricris. I think I will take that back, and then we'll definitely taking notes. But happy to hear that, and then we'll decide what's really happening. I mean, we want to hear both sides, of course.
I don't think there is two sides personally, but Anne, after this, I know you. I think we need to take this to the ABLE to the ABLE organization up in Sacramento, because if they hear about this, that regional center clients are being required to spend our ABLE account on things that regional centers should be funding, they're not going to be happy. So this is setting a lot of red flags up for me. That is really a major problem. Thank you, Anne.
Sounds great. Thank you.
The ICC, Fernando?
Yes, and Anne, I just wanted to thank you for making those comments. And I can assure you that they resonate across the state. And we hear them day in and day out. And I do like your comment about consequences. And yes, Maricris, there are two sides to the story, sometimes even more. But we definitely need to hear those stories and hold accountability. And because at this point there isn't any, and I know we could spend a lot of time drilling that down just on that point alone. So Anne, thank you. And it talks to a point that I wanted to share, and that goes to, as we disseminate this information, Catherine, you mentioned about statewide rules, and
so Fernando, I'm sorry, it is your speaker, your microphone that has a weird wind sound.
Oh, wait a minute. I have a fan next to me.
Ah, that's it.
There was wind in my house.
Like, how could we be hearing wind indoors?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Fernando.
It's not that hot a wind as everybody talks about. But you know, I wanted to come back about the dynamic that I know DDS in good faith puts out these directives, these statewide rules. And unfortunately, based on the fact that each of the regional center has its own autonomy, their own interpretation, and really a lot of times they take a lot of liberty in how they define those rules. And when it trickles down into the community, I mean, it's really the wild, wild west and what that interpretation is. So my request was going to be if we can have the community as well as your CBO partners receive those same rules and of course in layman terms so that we can understand them and be empowered so that we walk in and have these conversations. It's more of a balance because right now we're definitely at the mercy and experiencing things as what Ann was just sharing with us. So that was just going to be my
suggestion, Fernando. I'm a big believer in people getting information and that it being understandable. So
making it fair. And one quick question, if I may. I know that we have 2,500 participants in this phase of the implementation of the program. For the individuals who have dropped out and are dropping out, what are the plans from the department to replace them, if any?
And I think that's the question that someone else asked a little bit ago. I think there's a couple of people here that have been coming to the meetings who want to get in but can't, and is there any flexibility about that? And Judy made the point that it was a request made in the budget that wasn't successful. So I think all I can say is that 4 people have raised that same question, and it's for someone at DDS to decide, I think, about whether they're going to open up anything before June 3rd, June 7th, whichever date Judy has ingrained in her head.
June 7th.
June 7th.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Sunny Charness.
Hi, thank you, Judy. I'm a little bit in shock with what I just heard from Ann. So Ann, thank you so much for sharing that. Thankfully, I don't have anything that egregious to share, but that is, so sorry that you're experiencing that because that's really shocking. But I do want to echo some of what's already been said, but I'll just sort of put my own spin on it. I really like the suggestions around consequences for the regional center, but I might also suggest expectations, particularly around a timeline. So for those, I'm an independent facilitator. I support people through the process of transitioning into the program, and then I also support people once they're in the program. But right now, sort of a lot of the heavy lifting is done around getting people into the program. And we are working within a budget, and we're working with families, and we have, we have expectations that we have to meet. And so we do our job as efficiently and diligently as possible. But it seems to be that there are no expectations of regional centers. I've had clients waiting in the past more than 6 months for a regional center to produce a draft of an individual budget. Some regional centers are seem to be so disorganized around self-determination that it takes 3, 4, 5 meetings to get through the IPP process and in the budget process. And those of us who are doing the independent facilitation and the families are, families are taking time off work. They're putting a lot of effort into this process. They're jumping through hoops, and regional centers seem to be sort of at their whim, get to take as long as they want to do things. And there seems to be no guideline, no expectation, again, no consequences for the regional center. So clear expectations around the timeline. After an IPP meeting, regional centers should have 2 weeks, 3 weeks to produce a budget, something like that. It should be very clear so that the regional center has expectations just like the rest of us do. The other portion of what I wanted to bring up was around the development of the individual budget. There's such wide interpretation of how this is supposed to be done. You have some regional centers who have come up with the concept of the disencumbrance factor. So if you have an unmet need, they look at how much would have been spent on that for you in the traditional system minus 30% because most people don't use all of their services. These things that seem to be made up from one regional center to another. Right now I'm dealing with a situation, my client's gonna have to go to fair hearing because we've reached out to DDS numerous times for support. Seems like a really simple issue. Rate changes. Rates changed across the board for a lot of services in January of 2020. The budget was based on expenditures that took place half in 2019, half in 2020. The client wants to continue the same services. They need to be paid at the 2020 rate. Does the regional center need to make up the difference for those months that took place in 2019 at the old rate? It's been, 4 or 5 months that we've been going back and forth with the regional center on this. 2 months we've been waiting for technical assistance from DDS, and I can't get a straight answer. And it seems like such a simple thing. So technical assistance from DDS and clearer guidelines around how budgets are supposed to be developed. I think that was it. Well, I do one more thing. Once people are in the program, making changes to spending plans. I'm having a lot of clients that are getting some, that are having some pushback when they want to make even simple changes to their spending plan. So there's confusion around if a service is within the same service code in your spending plan and you want to change the vendor, or you want to move $1,000 from one service to another, do you need to let the regional center know, or can that just be done between the FMS and the client? If you want to move money from one service to another within the same budget category, do we need to involve the regional center or not? And if so, what's the process? And again, what's the expectation for the regional center to push that through? I have a client right now who they're cutting off our independent facilitation services because the FMS has fronted the money for the services for like 3 or 4 months because the regional center hasn't issued the POS to the FMS. And so the FMS is now unable to continue fronting the money for the independent facilitation services. And because of the regional center failed to produce the proper paperwork to the FMS. So, and again, there's no expectations, no consequences for the regional center. So those are my main suggestions.
I just want to ask just two clarifying questions. Is the independent facilitator being paid out of the individual budget, or what? How is the FMS involved in this?
So that's for people who are already in the program, and we're the independent facilitator is paid out of the individual budget.
Okay, and then the second is for the spending plan. Is that within the 10%? So the law says you can, change things within 10%. Are you talking about examples that are within that 10% for the ones that are related to money?
So thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's exactly the confusion. The law says that you can move money around freely. The 10% applies when you're going to move more than 10% of funds originally allocated to one budget category. There are 3 budget categories. So if you want to move more than 10% of funds originally allocated to one budget category to a different budget category, that's where that 10% rule kicks in, according to my understanding of the law. So no, this does not apply. We're talking about moving funds around within even a service code in some cases, and if it's not within a service code, it's within a budget category, and still there's like so many hoops to jump through, and there's a lot of confusion around that 10% rule. So some clarification there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Connie Laitman or Harvey?
Mine. Sonny, thank you very much. And thank you, Ann. You're going to prove to my point, Sonny. There's such a wide difference between all the regional centers. Some want it, some don't. I will say this to you, being a full-time believer in self-determination and a student of it. I study what's happening throughout the country. A dear friend of mine who died had a saying always, if it's not working, try another way. What they have done in other states is they have portal places or registration places on places of people who are knowledgeable. Let's use the word knowledgeable, not only of the law, but how to carry out the law. and this is what I would be doing. Right now, we're in a virtual life. Let's talk about it. What have we learned? We've learned we can do things differently and do them successfully. I would be saying not 21 regional centers, and we're doing it like right now. I'd have maybe 7 where people are really ramped up to do this and bringing people into the program. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting these battles right up to next June.
So I'm popping in. I didn't coin the phrase, but it's called re-bureaucratizing the system. What is self-determination? Why did we love it? Why did we choose it? Why did we make the law say that we get rid of some of these requirements that are just redundant? They don't
and duplicative.
Yeah, and I love the comments ahead of time, because what happens is the regional center system, for whatever reason, wants to do it the same way, even if it's called self-determination. And there's no timelines and there's no consequences. And I want the department to hear that there has to be timelines. These are people's lives, and the delay of this program is the root cause of it failing. And we don't want, it's not that it's bad. I mean, I'm so excited about the positives, but the barriers need to be addressed. The department, I know you're new, and now I've got your names, and I'll definitely get your phone numbers, but
I have to use the word leadership.
We've said these same comments now for years, and we need residents, we need action, and we need this program to work.
Thank you. Mari?
Hi, Judy. Hi, everyone. I have a question also. My son, this is also in regards of the self-determination way of getting into, right? My son was not chosen to the first lottery, but I'm trying to get, informed and prepare before June of 2020, hopefully sooner. But I've been having some, I have questions, first of all, in regards of I hear that those who enter into are already chosen for the self-determination now, the PCP is being paid out of the a client's budget. And my question is that next year is going to be the same, or I hear also that it might be coming, the payment might be coming out of the client's budget. And the answer is yes. I would like to know why.
So the PCP is separate funding that people can ask to have paid, have a person-centered plan paid for them. And I don't know, I don't think any decision's been made about what happens after June. So is that answering your question?
In a way, well, maybe I would like to make it a request, not just for me, but for most people. I'm Latino, and I'm talking about my community specifically. Mm-hmm. Most of the people in this Spanish community, Latino community, they have a very small budget, like very small. You have no idea. Mm-hmm. And it will be very difficult, even more so, for them to pay for the PCPs if they decide to PCP come out of the client's budget. So maybe you want to take in consideration and think about that, and hopefully keep it the same as now, okay. Right? Thanks. And I have another question. Like I said, I'm trying to get prepared with my son's PCP for next year, even though he's not in yet. And thank you to Judy and the ICC who are actually advocating and help us out to educate ourselves and so to be ready for next year. But my question is, I'm trying to get the POS of my son, and I hear other families are trying to get the POS to be ready to see where they are now. And I hear that the POS from the 2019-2020 is not ready for the regional center to provide that document. Is that true? They have been saying that we have to wait another year for them to provide that information, the 2019-2020 POS report. Is that true, or is some confusion there?
True. So there's no such thing as a POS report for a specific date. it's not, you can ask, first of all, every consumer in the state of California is supposed to be receiving, according to state law, a record of what their expenses were in the previous year at your IPP. In addition, and by the way, many people don't get it. I didn't get it for years. So
I'm in the same boat.
Right. The other thing you should know is that you can ask for your budget at any time, whether you're in the self-determination program or not. You can ask for how the regional center has spent money on you or your child at any time, and they can run the report from that day back 12 months. Everybody's entitled to that, and please put in the chat if you were having problems with that, because we will ask DDS to make that clear to regional centers that it is part of state law.
Please do so, because I didn't really want to talk personally about my son, but it's actually what's happening to me. I hear other, other families that I've been in contact with through who are part of the DBU and ICC, and everybody's going through the same issue. But I personally requested just the day before yesterday, and I hear an email that I can maybe forward it to you or someone to DDS, that my son's service coordinator is saying that that report, that information is not ready for her to provide it to me until next year. And I was confused, and I even sent an email requesting that, can you please inform me?
So go ahead and, yes, so go ahead and put something in the chat so that we can follow up with you on that.
All right, thank you, Judy.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We are running out of time, so here's what I'm going to do, everybody, because I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. I'm going to, even though I know what the order is, there's a number of people who have their hands raised who haven't had a chance to speak yet. So I'm going to call on them, and then we'll go back to those folks who've already had a chance to speak. So I'm going to go to Amin Ali right now. Go ahead, Amin. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, there's several things. Every time somebody talk, you raise an important issue. But the thing that our story was my son, 35 years, 36 in a couple months, actually. We took many training classes. We have several certificates. I guess Tim can testify to that. We couldn't really go through the process without having Tamara as a professional, IF to help us through the process. And we agreed with you. We listened to what you said, Judy, last meeting I was in Zoom, that you really don't try to do it yourself if you can. So what helps here is the $2,500 that's available in the pot. I'm looking at the future. When it opened, right now, you look at how many percentage, about 10% of the 2,500 probably crossed into self-determination. Maybe my number is not exactly correct, but in the order of 200 maybe plus. That's very small number. So when we open the door in June next year, that will be more difficult because there's nobody to hold your hand without being paid. And I think that is something that the DDS need to think about carefully. Because it's not here yet, it doesn't mean that we don't have to think about it strongly. Because there is a lot of good independent facilitator, but they also need to get paid, and that's fair. The other thing is, of course, when somebody talked about Cal-Able, it came to my mind, Cal-Able even have a waiver of Medi-Cal that they can reach out and take some of the resources back. How come some of the regional centers wanted to deplete the account before? That is really a very serious issue. And the other thing about, and I heard this, and I think there was a confusion. There is one of the area that we look at people dropping out within the 2,500 that right now were selected in the program. Last November draw, I thought that was overdrawn number of people to cover people that drop out. So I'm not sure if that's still overdrawn or we exhausted the people that were selected. And I know Judy and others and myself, we're thinking about everybody that put his name in the lottery should be really exercise the right to be selected, but maybe we are not there yet. But at least the 2,500 need to be 2,500.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and so there was an over selection, but it clearly wasn't enough. I'm wondering if anybody at DDS knows how many people are actually fully in the program right now. Does anybody know that? Tim, do you happen to know that?
I think it's how many, I don't know the answer to that, Tim May, but it's also how many people are in the process, right? So if you overdrew, you'd want to see how many people are making their way through the process so that you could account for those as well, I would think.
Right. But some people are making their way really slowly because, as like Sunny spoke about, it'll take like 4 or 6 months to get a response.
I got why it's low, but they're still in the process. So you couldn't discount those people being in the process. That was my only observation. It's like who got to the finish line and who's in the middle, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very frustrating. Diane Bernstein. Diane, are you there?
Congratulations to Carol, who just posted. She just got through the process. It starts September 1st. So yay.
That's wonderful.
Here I am.
Diane. Oh, here you go, Diane. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I was just thinking, because, you know, we don't always hear how sometimes some of the difficulties and struggles can actually be good and blessings. So I'm going to talk about the fact that we are in self-determination with my son since July 1st. And in particular, I'm thinking about some of the staff issues that we've had prior and maybe how we have them going forward and how we have tools to be able to resolve them, and also how everybody has just kind of developed and matured with this process. So I'm just wanted to address the fact that there's mixed blessings with some of this struggle. That's pretty much what I want to say.
Thanks, Diane. Joyce Clark. Hi, Joyce.
Hello, this is Joyce Clark. I'm from San Diego, and my son is going through the process. And first, I want to say we're a little bit of a slowpoke, and part of that has been some of the delays with the FMSs not being set up until May of last year. And then the other part is obviously the pandemic, when we thought we were ready to go through services change and service delivery change from the folks and agencies that we were using. With that being said, though, I want to put a plug into the definite need, the complicated process of the spending plan and person-centered planning. And I'm also the chair of the local advisory committee. So even having a heads up and being a strong advocate as a parent and plan to my own facilitator, it's a personal choice, which I may be questioning at this point in time. But I want to say that's going to be essential as this rollout occurs fully next June. I don't know how individuals can get started, because even though person-centered thinking, planning, person-driven planning, person-directed services have been around for a long time, familiar concept, and this is even more so for our underserved populations who have language barriers and cultural barriers and socioeconomic barriers. The other thing I want to say is that in terms of the statewide body and the process with DDS, I know we can't bring back or resuscitate Liz Harrell, but I need to have a dedicated person in the department to really, I guess, monitor, support, provide technical assistance, because I hear repeatedly on these types of calls and our own public calls that there are so many inconsistencies across the state. We're not experiencing lack of responsiveness locally that I know of, but I think that the issue is that it's not applying equitably across the state for people. And it is a thoughtful process too. So my hesitation is I shifted plans and now I think I have it. So I do hope I'm going to get this all resolved by September. So if my regional center self-determination person is on the phone, hip hip hooray for me. But it is an obstacle. I mean, these things for person-centered planning is need to be in place. So that $2,500 to get people into the program is essential. It really is. And there needs to be some type of consistency in expectations and definitions of what is. One regional center says, yes, you can. One says you can't. And those are the same things that we're hearing locally too for people who are in the program.
Thanks, Joyce. Okay, Connie, who I believe is Connie Boyer. Because it doesn't say Lathan. Connie Boyer. There you are.
Like 10 minutes left,
Yes,
right?
still 10 minutes left. So go ahead, Connie.
We just got into the program yesterday, actually.
Yay!
So I, having served on the SDAC committee for several years now, I do hear about and talk to other people about the inconsistencies from one regional center to the next, which is that in itself is a barrier and can be very disconcerting. So I do hope, this is just my comment, that we can get more direction and consistency from the regional centers. I mean, I know that the 21 are supposed to operate independently, but when it comes to implementing state laws, I really do think we need to be consistent. My question has to do with basically training for SLS and IHSS people, because if you have someone complex like my son, they need training. And what we found is a barrier both in the traditional system, and now I'm fearful that this will happen in the SD as well, is because he gets protective supervision of, you know, more than 280 hours, which is the generic resource that we have to use, but they offer no training in home support.
Oop, you're going in and out.
Unless don't usually get.
Connie, your signal's not great. Maybe because you're in an area that is having some power outages. I don't know, but you are frozen. Oh, you're muted, Catherine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Connie, if you can still hear us, maybe put either the information in a chat or send it separately, and then we can kind of add that to the feedback we're getting.
You are frozen, Connie. Sorry.
Yes,
Michelle Smith, you were up there and then you put your hand down. Was that, did you want to speak or did you put it down on purpose?
I can comment if we have time, and a couple of things.
So you know what I'd like to do when you're about to comment? I'd like to go to the Spanish line.
Yes.
While you're commenting. So Lorna, if you could ask, because I got in a chat that there is a Spanish speaking person who would like to make a comment. So go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, thanks. One is I'm seeing that the General Regional Center service coordinators need to be better educated if they aren't in the program, as well as I'm still running into people that are in regional centers that have no idea. So we continue to need to have global education. The other problem that I've had is about rates on the budget side. So people that haven't had services before, they are giving, and I'll give an example, ILS on the budget side, they are given an ILS service, which is at $18 an hour instead of an ILS program. And that's their hourly rate that they get to carry over into self-determination. That is unfair, that is unjust, that is going to become a disparity problem, because if you aren't educated about the differences with the codes that are on the traditional side, and most of us aren't, I'm in a huge learning curve with all of this, most of us aren't, then when you kick into self-determination and you want to do those extra things and hire those people that are more, that can actually teach your child how to cook because they have some skill on cooking techniques, you're not going to be able to hire them because you aren't going to have the money. And somebody who's been in a program then gets the $35 an hour. There's a total inequity with the way the rates are being done across the board. And I've talked to enough other regional centers to know that everybody's doing it differently. And it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, thank you for that, Michelle. Lorna, do you have a question from a Spanish speaker? No? Okay, great. David Oster?
David, you're up. There you go. You got it.
How do I go to the chair and say about the chat thing about the Spanish speaking, because it interrupts people in the regional in our self-determination committee?
Yeah. So you know what, David?
This is much better. This is much better than going to my meeting.
Yeah. So David, that's a really great question, and
Go to Anthony Perez and talk to her about it.
Yeah, let's hook you up with Ed Herzl because she's a real expert on how we handle this, okay?
Yeah. Is she here right now?
Yeah, we'll do it afterwards, okay?
Hi, David. I am. I'll chat you privately.
Thank
Okay.
you, Ed. Susie Weschler?
Yeah, so people did cover my point, so I just want to tick them off the list. Inconsistencies across regional centers. I'm in regional center of the East Bay, but I'm going to all of these programs that are based in the South Bay, so I'm hearing about San Andreas Regional Center and other regional centers. There is so many inconsistencies across regional centers, and I agree that when it comes to law, they should be the same. When it comes to information, they should be the same. When it comes to support of their communities and learning about self-determination, there should be no inconsistencies. There's a lack of understanding within my regional center. I mean, I simply asked to have their help to have my son put on the wait list, and we went around for a month to try to get him put on the wait list, and nobody knew how to do it. And it had to be popped up to the supervisor who didn't know, who had to talk to the self-determination person who said they don't do that and yada, yada, yada. And you know who finally got my son put on the wait list? It was Judy in about 2 seconds. I think that, you know.
I'm not a bureaucracy.
Right. Yeah, what Anne said, thank God for that. What Anne said and what everybody kind of jumped on that truck that she was driving down the driveway, which is that disagreements are solved on the backs of the clients rather than the regional centers being held accountable and having consequences, is a huge problem. There shouldn't be a disagreement and then it's solved on the back of the client having to go to fair hearing. When we're already stressed and already overworked and already not understanding the bureaucracy and already trying to take care of, you know, our son or our, you know, whoever it is we're trying to take care of.
I feel like I'm watching the Democratic convention because there's all these people like clapping like this. Okay, speaking of the Democratic convention, we have 3 minutes left.
Okay, let me get to my question then, if I could, just very quickly. So what I'd like to know is about, you know, for special ed law, when IDEA was put in place, DREDF, for example, was put in place as part of special ed law because the special ed law said that parents had to be educated about the law and had to have resources in order to exercise their rights of being an informed member of the IEP team. And so I'm wondering what kind of body is in place for self-determination. I mean, Judy and Parents Helping Parents is kind of fulfilling that role, but they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, right? Because they believe in this, not because it's mandated, right? And so I know that there's a family support education, there's family education support folks, but I gotta tell you, Parents Helping Parents is doing 500 times more than the regional center affiliated Family Resource Center, which is Care Parent Network. And when I even write an email to them saying, I'm just wondering about the differences, they don't even write me back. So that's what I will say. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Susie. The last person, I know it's 1 minute left, but I got a private message from my old friend Herb Anderson, who is on the call. And I think that he wants to ask a question. Herb, did you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? I'm not sure if you're still there. Herb, are you able to unmute? I will ask you to unmute. Oh, yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Herb.
Oh, thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate that. I just had a question. Actually, I'm here standing in for Diane. She's at a she's at the self-determination meeting at this moment.
Wonderful.
For Ashley. So, but she wanted me to ask the question of around unmet needs. And I think that maybe a couple of people had alluded to it earlier. And that is that one of the most attractive things to us about, and powerful things to us about self-determination was the fact that, like, for my daughter Ashley, what she had to do was in her day program, she had to find 3 or 4 other people in her day program who wanted to participate in the exact same activity that she wanted in order to get someone to help her with that. And so with self-determination, we're able to get something, get a dedicated person for her. Only that we're in the budget process right now, and there's some reluctance to fund an activity for Ashley because it has not been something that was a part of her IAP before. And it wasn't something as part of her IEP because they wouldn't fund it. And so now we would like to see if there's some kind of way that we can include a cost that has not been, you understand what my question is, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. Does DDS want to try to answer that, or are they looking to me to answer that? No? See, hence is the issue, I think, with a lot of what the concerns that people have is that DDS hasn't been, and I'm not including you, Catherine, I know, but it's like DDS and Tim and Maricris, you guys are really, really new, but DDS has got to be the one to answer these hard questions. Because if you don't, then there's going to be 21 different ways that self-determination is going to be implemented. And what Herb is asking here is that there is a service that his daughter's been denied in the past, and that should be added to her budget, or at least the cost of it should be added to her budget. And I am seeing the same issue repeated time and time again. And you know, the whole point of self-determination is for us to be able to have choice and control over our lives. And instead, what we're seeing is that regional centers continue to hold incredible amounts of control over our lives through delay, through denial, or through denial by delay, and through a lack of knowledge. And so, you know, it's kind of a closing, because I don't even have an answer for you, Herb, except to say they should be able to count on it, and you should be asking for assistance from DDS if they're not. And if you're not getting what you need from DDS, then you should be going to fair hearing. You know, I just want to say that in the 20 years of the pilot, but this is not a pilot that we're in, by the way, this is just the phased implementation, which is almost over, and it's going to go fully statewide. But in the 20-year pilot, there was only one time that a participant went to fair hearing. We've already had more, and there were 200 people in the program. We have 200 people in the program in the phase-in, and we've had way more than one fair hearing. Something is really wrong here. We are not in charge. And so I implore you, DDS, to put us in charge, to give clear directives to regional centers. There's consistency throughout the state, and that to provide a training, a really in-depth training. You know, you make us as parents or participants or family members go through a 6-hour, incredibly boring, long orientation, and I can take that criticism because I helped to prepare it, but it is an incredibly long orientation. Do you know how many hours are required of orientation for service coordinators? 0. So we're walking into an IPP where we are more knowledgeable than the service coordinators. And it puts, and certainly many independent facilitators are way more knowledgeable than service coordinators, and it's putting us at an incredible disadvantage because they're saying they know better when they haven't even gone through the orientation. So you know, if we have to write legislation on this for when it goes statewide, we will, to require a certain amount of hours of service coordinators to get training, to require DDS to provide that training, and we'll do it. But we'd rather you do it voluntarily, to know that it is literally the difference between the success and failure of this program.
And Judy, I wanted to address that, your comment. Actually, if I started talking and answering questions, I would not hear everyone's questions. So I just wanted to know that I really, DDS, you know, Tim and I and Catherine really came here wanting to hear everyone's questions and comments. And, you know, we wanted you really to like inform us, because if I start answering one question, I probably would have answered only 5 questions, and then, you know, the rest wouldn't feel heard. But this is why we have this discussions. We've had our separate discussions with RCs. We've had this forum with this group, and then we're going to have one with the council. We're going to have one with the CBOs, because we want to take the whole picture. And I hear what you say. I actually live most of what you guys live. So I understand what you're trying to communicate. The hardships are, the struggles are real, and it is a program that I think we all believe is meant to like improve, you know, our loved ones' lives. And so it's a learning process, and I appreciate, if anything, the candor that everyone and the honesty that everyone had when they shared, you know, their experiences and their struggles. Because, you know, like I've mentioned in our other meetings, we can try fix it at the state level, but it would not make sense if we don't include you in the conversation. So this is, you know, one of the first steps that we're hoping would move us towards, you know, us really trying to address some of the barriers. But I heard loud and clear most of what you said. We're gonna have a record of the chat, the questions that you put in the chat, and so trust that we're listening. I mean, I would leave it at that.
Okay, thank you so much. And we invite you to join us every Wednesday from 4:30 to 6 DDS. If you can't be here, Maricris, I understand you got a lot of other stuff going on, but you know, you have staff who can join and take notes and then report to you. It would be really helpful, because we hear these stories week in and week out. So we appreciate it. And so everybody,
I just add my thanks, Judy, to everyone. I thought really good feedback and really good questions. And I appreciate you kind of collecting the things that were on the chat and getting them up to DDS so that that can be part of, you know, sort of the, what do we need to do next, and how can we best ensure that this program moves forward in a way that works for families and self-advocates.
Wonderful, thank you. And just a reminder to everybody that we're having our webinar tomorrow from 2 to 4 p.m. where we're talking about the new Coalition Disability Vote California. And we really hope that you will join us for that and become involved. So thank you, everybody. Go turn on your TV, clap in your clap. And thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.